Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Strange one this. I was going to do a video anyway. I'd said it in the last video. I was going to do maybe a Q&A, discuss little bits and pieces that would happen. I knew the press conference would have happened as well. I don't think anyone expected I would be talking about in this video a brand new £30 million signing for Tottenham Hotspur today. I think it caught everyone unawares. I think it, seemingly on the face of it, caught Spurs and their admin team a little unawares as well, as we'll come to. But yeah, in case you missed it all, the excitement, especially this morning, Tottenham Hotspur have signed Wilson Odobert in a deal worth, I understand, an initial £25 million with another £5 million potentially in add-ons on top of that. I mean, I've always said that Johan Lang likes to work under the radar, very much compared to Fabio Paratici's louder, noisier way of working and all the different targets, especially in Italy. Johan Lang, yeah, I've said this kind of on countless occasions that he likes to try to get deals as advanced as possible before anyone finds out. I don't think any of us expected it to come out without anyone really knowing. It's very rare in today's kind of game for it to get that far without an agent spilling the beans to someone around the player, anyone involved in either club to spill the beans. But there we go. To be fair, I think it was Sasha Tavares, I think it's called, like a Twitter transfer type, who got it out about 20 minutes before the announcement. So fair play, absolutely fair play where it's deserved there. Even 20 minutes before it's announced. But yeah, that was one that we didn't see coming, to be fair. It's feels very much like a data-led transfer, one of those. Talented young player, only 19 years old, French, a dribbler, I think we can call him very much. Signed a contract till 2029. He's going to take the shirt number 28. Yes, Tongi shirt. Hopefully will fare better in it than his compatriot did. We'll see whether I start up another club appreciation society for him. Hopefully we get to do that with a little bit more success this time. So keep those laminated membership cards. Might be able to transfer them if you've got the number 28 on it. He's a very versatile young man. He can play on either wing. Played mainly on the left last season for Burnley, but he can play on the right. He also played a couple of times up front and can also play as an attacking midfielder, which I think he did the other night against Luton for Burnley. Despite the fact that he was only 18 for half of last season and 19 for as it wore on, he played 29 Premier League games for Burnley last season. Scored 3 times, got 3 assists, scored a really nice kind of low finish against Chelsea, scored a lovely outside the box goal against Brighton, and his goal against Fulham, I think was Burnley's goal of the season, if I remember correctly. Go and have a look at that. It's an absolute belter. I remembered kind of, when his name flashed up this morning, I was very much like, okay, I remember bits and pieces. I think I vaguely remember him giving Porro a few issues as well in the game against Spurs. I could be wrong. But I remember seeing bits and pieces of him last season and being a bit of a young talent in a struggling team. So I went back today, I went to go and watch bits and pieces of him and just kind of watched his goals and assists from last season, any other little bits and pieces I could. And I mean, it is clear his technique is fantastic. He's a fast lad. He's got a lot of dribbling ability as well. He's going to be an absolute nightmare for defenders, I think, as he was last season, but I think even more so in a team where he's probably having slightly less worries about, I think he'll have to defend. That's the Postecoglou way. He'll have to defend from the front. But, playing in a team that isn't battling away and struggling, but is on the kind of the dominant side of the pitch, I think he's going to be a bit of a nightmare for people. Like I say, you've got to bear in mind, I know some people will look at it and say, only 3 goals and 3 assists, but I should stress, he was 18 and then 19 during the season. It was, for a struggling team at the bottom that did get relegated, it was quite an impressive return really from a young player who'd come from Troyes. I guess he pronounces that completely differently, so I'm probably pronouncing it completely the wrong way there, from France. I think he did catch a few people's eyes, but there was I think there was a little bit of a buzz about him this summer and maybe going somewhere and that Burnley might struggle to keep hold of him. But I don't think anyone expected Spurs to just go in there like that. I get the sense that maybe other clubs were starting to move and they felt it was an opportunity that couldn't kind of be missed. He did make the most. completed the most successful dribbles in the Premier League than any other teenager, 53 of them, which actually also placed him fourth across major leagues, the 5 major leagues in Europe for successful dribbles last season. So he can beat a man. And if, the Postecoglou way, if he can beat his man, get down the side, put that ball across, bang. And also, looks like he does like the odd cutting in, and he's just got that pace. If you watch his goal against Luton the other night, it's a ball that goes down the flank and it's knocked over the top. And he doesn't even look like he's out of about second gear. And he just flies past the defender and puts it really calmly into the net. So, yeah, we'll get to see all of this speed, dribbling, versatility in a Spurs shirt now. Again, with that price tag, 30 million in all, that's not one just for the future. That is a player for the now. Remarkably kind of talented, gifted young side for years to come they're building. You could absolutely argue, is it enough for now? Is there enough experience for now? I did always kind of feel, when I was told by quite a few people, that this might be a window about buying younger players. Didn't expect it to be 4 teenagers, essentially. Gray and Bergwald, 2 18-year-olds. Heung-min coming in January, 18-year-old as well. And now, Wilson Odobert, who is 19 years old. It's, but there is, look, he's not a star name. And I can understand there'll be a few people who are expecting, I guess, what do we call, it's marquee signing, I suppose, is the phrase that's often used now. I don't even know really what that means. I suppose that means a big star name, I guess is probably the easiest way to put it. He's not that, absolutely. He can become that. There's a lot of people, I've kind of spoken to various people that support Burnley or people that know Burnley fans over the last 8 to 10 hours or so. And the general consensus is he's going to be a star. And they're absolutely devastated they've lost him. He was like a big, big kind of player for him. Spurs putting out stuff now as we we land. It's his flight down to Spurs, Odobert, and coming into the training ground. Yeah, we'll have a little chat about that and the whole aspect of the. Let's have a little look at this. This is very strange. Yeah, it's fine. Looks like Eze's release clause expires today as well. See, that's an interesting one. I mean, we could just break quickly from the Odobert talk to talk about Eze, because it did always feel, from what we've spoken about, what we've heard about with Eze, that the release clause was a difficult one to achieve unless you put the full whack up front, which, as I've said, is not something clubs do. Had interest from, I think, Man City were interested as well. I feel like Arsenal as well. We're looking at them. There's some talk about Liverpool as well. And the fact that they've got to the stage that nobody hit that release clause is an interesting one. Apparently no longer active according to... Let's have a look. That is... Crystal Palace reporter has said that expired at 5 p.m. today, apparently. I mean, that's not ruling out the fact that there could still be a transfer, but obviously someone now has to pay exactly what Palace want rather than that exact figure, which was, it was talk that it was around 60 million, but the bulk, if not all of that, had to be paid up front. That was the talk anyway, with another, I think, 8 million add-on, something like that as well. Look, I understand if people are disappointed that Spurs haven't tried to do that. And it's interesting because you could argue that Odobert plays in this similar positions, really. The fact that he can play as an attacking midfielder or he can play out wide. Is he likely to have been the alternative because they didn't get Eze? Perhaps. But we'll see. I mean, Vincent Kompany was asked about him last season, towards the end of last season, and he said, this is Odobert. I will almost refrain from what I really think about him, because at this moment in time, I don't think people realise how good he is. He's still playing in a team that is playing for survival, but the things he's able to do, whether it's defending or whether it's attacking, like I said, I'll refrain from what I really think, because I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to create a situation where the expectations become too big for him too soon. He's in the right place right now with us. That's absolutely the right step. He's getting the right game time he needs for his development, but we'll have fond memories of him in 5 or 6 years' time when we have this conversation again. So yeah, he absolutely believed he was going to be something special. There's a few kind of Burnley fans that felt that he's going to be a bit of a want to be one of these £100 million players quite quickly, and we'll see. We'll see. There's a lot of wingers at Spurs now, especially if he's going to be used in that role. It was a strange announcement, though. That was kind of what I was alluding to earlier. It was very weird in the way that it obviously just suddenly came out, and even as a journalist myself, I don't think it's the worst thing sometimes if a transfer gets done with a club able to get it through without any kind of anyone else knowing about it, because it's easier for the process. We know that the amount of time Spurs have had to battle with other clubs when something has become known, or likewise when Spurs have kind of snuck in there with other clubs if their interest or something has been made very public. But there was just something weird about the announcement of this, in that it kind of happened and then that was it for like 7 hours or so. It was very strange. Normally Spurs will do a little bit of a tease before something happens, a little bit of an indication that a new signing announcement is going to come. That would have been everyone would be like, what kind of thing? What is about to be announced? Even more so than just something going, bah, he's out there, he's signed kind of thing. Just this very short, oh yeah, by the way, we've signed Wilson Odobert from Burnley. And even the player himself, just his Instagram, just changed the bio to @SpursOfficial. There was no kind of message to the Burnley fans. There was no message to the Spurs fans. I mean, I'm sure that's all to come. But it was just something strange about the timing of the announcement. And it took 7 hours before they even mentioned his name again. Eventually, they did a very funny video, to be fair, which kind of nodded towards that weird time gap. It was like a Friday night dinner little clip about Wilson. It's very funny. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend having a little watch. It's only 45 seconds or so, but it's very good. And he pops up at the end of it, Odobert. And now we've had the signing pic, or him with the shirt, little video, and this video now of him getting on the plane and then landing and coming to Spurs. So yeah, I don't know whether that means it was all done and dusted before he arrived at Spurs, whether it was done remotely and now they've had to do the stuff. That's what I presume it would be. But yeah, it was a strange way of doing it. And like I say, just because it was out the blue as well. But yeah, we shall see. It is another very young signing. Honestly, it makes Dominic Solanke and Timo Werner look like old men, quite frankly, the amount of young players that Spurs are signing this summer. That's not a bad thing. It does take me back a little bit to the early Pochettino kind of transfer windows when they started to really assemble this young team that we all really connected with. You do that when it's a young team that are really kind of hungry and driven and they click. There's a great kind of unity, a little family atmosphere about it. That kind of probably has been the best version of Spurs in recent memory. 2 top 3 finishes, another 4th place, Champions League final, and yeah, of course there was no silverware, but I'm not wrong, am I? That's probably the kind of most connected we felt, the team and the fans, during those kind of peak years. And it was maybe because it was a young team that grew together. Of course, is it going to be an instant fix for this team? Are they going to be able to do amazing things this season? We don't know, because naturally with younger players they can be a bit more inconsistent. But to be fair to Poch back then, he kind of built them quite quickly to be able to challenge further up the table. So yeah, we'll see with Postecoglou. These are all players that fit his way of playing. That's going to give them license to be kind of at their best and creative. He's going to give Odobert the absolute ability to get up there and dribble at will past people. With Solanke coming in there, his pressing ability, I think, is going to be a major factor up front as well, defending from the front. So I still think they're going to surprise a lot of people that have kind of put them in 5th or 6th place in the pundits' predictions. I was talking to Guesty on the podcast earlier. I've actually got them at 3rd, and people are going to think I'm mad. But I've just got this feeling that Liverpool might be in a little bit of state of flux this season. They've got a very good squad, of course, still, but they're kind of getting to grips with something new, whereas with Spurs are in the 2nd year of that. The foundations have already been built. We'll see how the rest of the league shakes up, but there's also potential points deductions, things like that to come into play as well. So, we'll see. But I've just got this feeling that we might start to reconnect with this Tottenham Hotspur as a young kind of Spurs again with a hell of a lot of talent. Some of these players are just ridiculous in what we see. I still can only go back to Archie Gray is just going to be phenomenal. Lucas Bergvall is going to be phenomenal. And I think this season as well. And if Odobert can do that as well, fantastic. And so many more to come. There's Luka Vuskovic as well to come next year. But look, I know it's about the now, and I know this kind of signing won't be for everyone. I absolutely understand that. But it does feel very much like this data-led version of transfer business that Spurs are doing now. And what I would also say, myself included, we were probably grumbling last year or years in the past about Spurs. We see someone like Brighton go out and pluck this player out of seemingly nowhere, and then they become these incredible talents. And we would all say the same thing of why can't Spurs scout like that? Why can't Spurs bring in players like that? These young superstars in the making. It kind of feels like what they're doing now. And I guess it's difficult to... I know we want to be a bit greedy, I suppose. I would like both. I would like these young stars, and I would also like some big ready-made stars as well. Absolutely. But they are at least doing that. And I do think Solanke is a big ready-made star. I still don't think people realise how good he's going to be for this team. I honestly, I'm not going into all that again, but he is one that I've been pushing for a little while. By the way, talking of strikers, if you hear me making any kind of weird noises like unfortunate groans or whining or stuff when I'm trying to move, I played in this tournament yesterday, a work tournament. It was various teams from media organisations and newspapers playing in this tournament at Power League, just next to Loftus Road, funnily enough. And it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. We had 8 games, pretty much, they were all, other than one 10-minute break after game 4, straight after each other, constantly. And we came runners-up. We did pretty well. We did well. Somehow, Scott Minto, the lovely Scott Minto, named me as the runner-up player of the tournament. I have no idea why. I think he maybe kind of watched 2 or 3 games in the middle where I was half decent and I scored a few goals. And I think maybe he turned away and then watched other games and only remembered those goals. I'm like one of those players that had one decent season and everyone remembers them for that. So I felt a little bit embarrassed when my name was called out because there were so many players more deserving. Players on my team that were better as well. But I did score 2 absolute beauties among the bunch. But anyway, that's why I'm moaning. Pulled a groin muscle that I pulled a few months back again, and a toe that was covered in blood after it as well. It was brutal, but it was great fun. But Daily Mail won, and we came second among the teams. But yeah, good fun. Anyway, that was just to explain if you suddenly hear me going as I move, because I've been doing that all day and annoying everyone in the house. So yeah, back to this. The other thing about it all with Odobert is what it means for other players. I mean, Manor Solomon. Where does Manor Solomon fit into this squad now? I can't see it. I just can't see it now. Especially having seen him in pre-season and how he's going to need game time to get anywhere near where he used to be. He hasn't looked that player, and Mikey Moore has very much pushed him down the pecking order as well. Mikey Moore, I didn't even think about Mikey Moore when I'm talking about young players. My goodness. Spurs have got one of the most gifted kind of young players in the English academy system right now, and he's just turned 17. It's exciting for the long term. I definitely can understand people getting a bit grumpy about not having the big name signings, but they're spending money. But it's on a lot of kind of long-term stuff, which, look, if they're able to contribute right now with some experienced heads around them, it could be incredibly exciting. But we have to see. Some of the signings last summer, I think, there was a few people saying, is that the cheaper, younger version of the player we actually want? And then the likes of Van der Ven, Vicario, I know he's not younger, but he, was a cheaper version to Raya. Van der Ven to Tapsoba it was back then, wasn't it? And then they came in and they were fantastic. They were absolutely brilliant. So we can only really judge on the games that come. But I have spent a fair whack now. I think someone said it was 140 million. I haven't added up all the numbers, I really should, but it's getting up there. It is, and whether it's on the players you wanted them to spend that on is a different thing. You know, you could quite easily, I suppose, say, we're just talking about Eze, if that was 60 million up front, would you have put that money towards him rather than, I don't know, two of these players? It's a difficult one. Everyone sees different things and different needs. Eze would have been class, don't get me wrong, I think it would have been fantastic. And who knows? We don't know what the rest of the window brings. Who knows? Might be something incredibly exciting happens. But I just think Spurs are setting themselves up to have a proper dream team of sorts for, you know, there's a lot of talk is we don't know what's going to happen with City. Is that going to kind of crumble with all of these charges if they're proved? Are we going to see the end of the Guardiola reign? And suddenly the league becomes a lot more open. You know, they've won it 4 in a row, haven't they? And then Spurs could be well set to be this fantastically moulded team that all reaching their peak together, potentially. Or not their peak, but, you know, developing together, I guess is the best way to put it. We'll see. We'll see. I'm excited about these players. I would like probably another experienced head to come in before the end of the season would be great. So end of the summer, not the end of the season. But yeah, back to Manor Solomon. I kind of have a feeling now, I think we'll see Manor Solomon head off. I would imagine on a loan with an option to buy, because I would be surprised if anyone comes in with a permanent move for him right now, because you just don't know how he's going to react. You don't know how he's going to take to proper, regular, prolonged football again. So I think that anyone coming in will say, okay, well, we'll take him, but we'll have an option there in case he kind of does what we hope he'll do. It's a shame for him. It's just injury. It's just a freak, non-contact injury. His knee, that was I think he only played 4 times, maybe more than that. And that was about it. Out for 10 months. And then he comes back, and obviously, understandably, he's not where he wants to be yet. And this young star in the making, Mikey Moore, getting played on the right rather than his more natural left, and he's absolutely smashing it. And obviously now, you know, more players coming in. It's difficult to see where Manor Solomon fits in because of the sheer volume, the number of people that can play in these roles now. You know, so many. Sonny, Johnson, Werner, Odobert in there as now. Kulusevski as well, although be interesting to see. I think he'll start the first game as a right winger, Kulusevski, but I do wonder whether we'll see him more as a midfielder. Bergvall at push can actually play on the wings as well. I saw him do that at times when I watched him at Djurgården taking on Bromma Poikana. We've seen him put in a lovely cross. Was it against QPR? I think it was, wasn't it? The one that the second goal came from. Was it that one? I think Dane Scarlett, or was it Hearts? Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, there was a cross. It was a lovely cross. And there's probably someone I've already forgotten there as well. I mean, technically, Solanke and Richarlison can both play as wingers as well. So it just kind of seems mad for Manor Solomon to kind of stick around hoping for the odd minute or two here and there. He might as well head off. But it just is such a shame. I mean, it's a free transfer. Shakhtar obviously still grumbling about it. So I don't know how cut and dried that will be, but we'll see. And the other thing, of course, is the old classic homegrown foreign player. Numbers and limits and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, it's that's all a bit of a mess, of course. And you might have seen in the press conference, Ange taking a mickey out of me. And also, I'd like to think, suggesting that he is aware of my fascination with homegrown and foreign player numbers. Either that I'm not saying he watches his YouTube videos or anything, or reads my articles or anything, but he seemed to be aware that it's something I'm aware of. Because I asked the question, essentially it was, you've got to register a Europa League squad. I think it's by September the 3rd. That seems quite difficult with the numbers you've got and fitting into the various categories. Is that something that plays on your mind when you're kind of looking at transfers or players that have to leave? Or is it just something that you're going to cross that bridge when you come to it at the end of the month or so? And he kind of looked at me and he went, I think you spend far more time trying to work that out than I do, mate. And I was just like, what? And everyone laughed and all that. And it was just like, you know that I am, keep an eye on these things. And I do kind of feel like it is something I think he's downplaying. I mean, here's the rest of the quote. He said that, and then he said, I think we'll be fine. We have enough players to play. With those things, if you get caught up in numbers, look, the idea is to have a strong enough squad to compete in everything we want to. You do have to balance it off, but with the squad we have at the moment and the balance of what we're trying to do, I still feel we're in a good place to be able to field a strong team and abide by the guidelines. Absolutely, that's all true. But then they went and signed another foreign player who can be registered as an under-21 on the Premier League list, but has to be registered as a foreign player on the Europa League squad. So it is actually adding to the problems literally 14 hours or so after he kind of had a little joke with me about it. He is going to have to think about it, because I think I said in the last video, I think for the Europa League squad, you need Lo Celso, Reguilon, Solomon, and maybe someone else to go as well. Ashley Phillips, I think I worked out it was, wasn't it? And then probably Fraser Forster maybe being left out as well if you wanted to then put another person in. I'd imagine Alfie Devine heads out on loan as well, but he doesn't actually impact the numbers, I don't think. But yeah, it's, I get it, and I get it's kind of funny to not be worried about it and all of that. And I don't think he's like losing sleep at night about it or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. But I do think that he is going to have some tough decisions to make come the end of this month, especially if he still seems to be indicating about more transfer activity as well. I still wonder if it means that someone else is likely to go out that we don't expect, because otherwise you can't fit them in, or someone has to be dropped from this Europa League squad that we would not expect to be dropped. And that's going to, be a difficult one. It's not like I'm going to suddenly go, like, hey, see, it was difficult for you, or anything like that. But it's just more, I do think it's something they're a bit more aware of than they make out. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We've had a couple more transfers since the last video as well, heading out. I reported earlier in the week that Jamie Donley would be getting a new contract and he would be heading on to Leyton Orient on loan, and that has now happened. New contract until 2029, which is great. Big old 5-year deal there for Jamie, who's obviously had a brilliant year and absolutely deserves that. I think it's a 2-year extension with Spurs. That could well be a 4-year with a 1-year option. I'm not sure. But, he deserves a little bump up in his contract because, quite frankly, he's gone on and made 4 appearances for the club. 3 Premier League ones, 1 FA Cup one, and he's done very well. Went on tour, played as a left-back. He's done superbly. This is a really good move for him. I often see, whenever loan moves come out, people always kind of moan about the level they're at. Because it's League One, Leyton Orient at League One. Guessing I was having a chuckle there. Was it yesterday? It was one of the days when someone said, why would you go to a bottom club in League One? It's like they played 1 game and lost it. That's why they're near the bottom. They played 1 game. The season is that new. I think there's always this kind of feeling of they need to play at the highest possible level. It doesn't really work like that. The best loan move for a player is one where he's going to play a lot of minutes and develop. That's the most important thing. I used Dane Scarlett as a good example last season. Went to Ipswich, team challenging at the top, promotion chasing in the Championship. Obviously got there, they got promotion. But the downside for a young player going in there on loan is that unless there's injuries or you absolutely smash it from minute 1, you're going to be playing a bit part role. And Dane very much was struggling to get game time. So it was not a good loan. Great club, felt like a great fit, lovely attacking football and all of that. But ultimately, if he's not getting the developmental minutes he needs, doesn't matter. He would have been better off going somewhere else. And this is the case. I think they used it with Alfie Devine really well last year. They sent him to Port Vale for the first half of the year. Did really well in League One. And then they bumped him up to Plymouth to play in the Championship, which you could see there was a bit more of adjustment for him, but that was all part of learning. And he came into pre-season. I thought he was brilliant in pre-season, Alfie Devine. I would imagine we'll see something similar with Jamie Donley in that it's been announced as a season-long loan, but then maybe a lot of these loan moves have recall clauses in January, so they can kind of reassess it from all sides. I'm not saying it's definitely there, but it is there in 99.9% of these loan moves that they do for the young players, because there's very rarely a fee involved. It's not that kind of loan like the bigger ones where they send out first-team players. So I think you look at it in January and you think, okay, what's more beneficial? Is it to keep him there in League One and just really continue this development, getting the physicality idea of taking on essentially men's football. And if he is and he's smashing it, then you look at, does he go to the next level with the Championship, or do you keep him at that level and just continue to grow in that respect? I think it's a good move for him. I think from what I understand, they're a team that need him. They need his kind of very clever passing range and ability, and his eye for goal as well. I think he'll do very, very well for them. Richie Wellens, the manager, said, Jamie brings talent, skill, goals and assists. He's technically very good and he's someone who Spurs rate highly and they think he can play for their first team in the future. We're proud that Tottenham have trusted us to work with and develop him in the first phase of his career. I think that I'm good at working with younger players, getting that balance right by putting demands on them, but also realising when to get the talent and the ability shining through. Orient's Director of Football Martin Ling said, Jamie is highly thought of at Spurs and we're very grateful to them for allowing us to take him on loan for the season. We have a good relationship with Spurs which goes back many years and we hope Jamie can be the latest player to have a successful time with us before going back to Spurs and making an impression on their first team. Jamie has spent a lot of time training with Spurs senior squad this summer and this is a big move for him with it being his first senior loan. He can cover a number of positions, he has a fantastic left foot and we're looking forward to seeing what he can do for us. I think it's a really good first loan. I think there'll be a fair few Spurs fans who kind of sometimes have one eye on Orient anyway, will have an even closer eye because of Jamie being there. You know my thoughts on Jamie Donley. I think he's going to be a Premier League player. I think he is. He's a lovely lad as well. I've been lucky enough to interview him on a number of occasions and he's got a very bright future ahead of him. He's got a very good head on his shoulders as well, which is important. And I will certainly be paying very close attention to how Orient go. I might try and get down there for a couple of games as well to see how he does. So, that's a good one for him. A good first steps into the world of kind of regular professional senior football for him. Talking of Dane Scarlett, another move as well this week. Went to Oxford United on loan. Championship newcomers, Oxford United. With Dane, very simple. Just needs goals. That's what he needs. He's a striker. He's got a lot of kind of people rating him highly. Struggled a bit this summer. He has kind of fallen down the pecking order behind Will Lancashire. But there's a lot of talent there. It's just now about scoring the goals to show you're a striker. So many Spurs young stars in the making, like strikers in the making, that's been the step they haven't been able to get. Even Troy Parrott. He found it last season at Excelsior Rotterdam, found the goals, which was great, and I think he'll score a bucket load for RZ this season. But on his earlier loans at the likes of like Millwall, Ipswich, Preston, MK Dons, he was scoring some goals, but not as many as kind of his talent and his finishing ability kind of allowed you to think he would. And that's it, really. If you're going to become a Premier League player, if you have any hope of breaking in at Tottenham Hotspur, your loan moves have got to come with goals. And that's the thing for Dane now. He's got to go there, score some goals. Oxford boss Des Buckingham said about him, Dane is such an exciting young centre-forward and we can expect that he can begin making a difference straight away. Not only does he bring an eye for goal, but his pace and intelligence will be important to us both in the way we attack and in the way we press. So just keeping an eye on the under-21s are playing as well. It's 1-1 against Chelsea away at Chelsea. Tyrese Hall scored the equaliser as well. So good for him because he had a funny summer. They kind of, he obviously had a lot of successful stuff getting on the tour and things like that, but probably didn't get the minutes on the tour that he would have wanted either. So he could do with a good season, kind of, whether that be for the under-21s or whether that is on a loan move. Just needs to keep pushing on, really. I mean, it was only last season he spent the second half of the season with the under-21, so he's quite new to that level anyway. He's only 18 years old. What other moves have we had? Emerson Royal, of course. Emerson has gone to Milan. He is headed off to Italy. I asked Postecoglou about him because I thought you might just want to say some words about him, because whatever you want to say about Emerson Royal, he was always there for Spurs when they needed him. He would fill in any position, and he's just a really great professional of a player. And I think he'll do well for Milan. I do. So I asked Postecoglou, and he said, yeah, Emmy, super guy. Great pro again. It's one of those decisions you have to make when you're trying to change squads. Really popular amongst the group, and not just because he's a great guy. He didn't play a lot last year in his preferred position, but you wouldn't know it the way he trained every day. He's the hardest worker at training and a really top guy. He's a guy you would want to spend time with. A big heart, loved by all, and I think it's a fantastic move for him. He will love Milan. It's a big club he's gone to, and it's one of those things that happen in football where it's not really an aspersion on him that he's not part of this. It's just other things aligned. I think it is a win for him, and it allows us to continue rebuilding the squad in the way we want. I thought that was really nice. I thought he captured that really nicely, the balance there of praising Emerson, saying he's got a great move and he's done really well for himself, while also saying that the future at Tottenham probably didn't include him in it. Yeah, he's very good at that, Postecoglou. Even sometimes when you catch him in the moment, he's very good at balancing what he says. And yeah, can only wish him the best, really. It's... like I say, I think he'll do well. I think Serie A will suit his skill set quite nicely. Of course, Yves Bissouma as well. We have to talk about Yves Bissouma. I think that all came out, didn't it, the night after my video that I did? I think it was on Sunday. So if you completely missed it, videos emerged on social media of Yves Bissouma appearing to inhale laughing gas, nitrous oxide, whatever you want to call it. There's various names for it. It is something that has been illegal for the last year or so. You are not allowed to be in possession of it. I think there's certain medical exceptions and things like that, but this clearly wasn't that kind of scenario because Bissouma came out and apologised publicly for it. And yeah, we were intrigued to see how Postecoglou was going to deal with it, what he was going to say about it, and again, I felt he spoke very well on it. I've got the quotes here of what he said because I think it's better if you kind of hear his words rather than me just trying to paraphrase him. So he said, I've been in the game for a long time, and every time situations like this arise, and they do happen, I always try to look at them in a couple of different ways. One, there is a person involved. In this case, it's Biss, and he's made a really poor decision. You want to understand that and try to help him through that, and as a club, what we can do to make sure he doesn't make those kind of choices and decisions in the future. Within that context, there are still sanctions that are involved, and some of those sanctions include education and giving him a clearer understanding of why he did what he did and how wrong it was. Hopefully, through that, he comes out of it. You always want to give the people the opportunity to learn from their mistakes. The second part of that is he's also a footballer. He has responsibility to the club, his teammates, to our supporters and everyone associated with the club, and he failed in those duties. There have got to be sanctions for that. He won't be available for Monday. We have suspended him for Monday's game. Beyond that, there is also some trust building that needs to happen between Biss and me and Biss and the group. That's what he needs to work hard at from now on to try and win that back, and that has nothing to do with just one game. He may be suspended for one game, but he's going to have to earn that. The door is open for him, and hopefully we can help him to realise the decision he makes impacts more than just him, and hopefully allows him to make better decisions going forward. So he was asked, what can Bissouma do to earn back his trust? To which he said, behaviour, mate. It's quite simple. It is him making better choices moving forward and behaviour. He's obviously disappointed and was very apologetic, not just to me, but to the club and everyone involved. That is just the first part of the process. The next part is behaviour now, making sure, like I said, he does the things he needs to do, like all of us. We all make mistakes, and it's how you fight your way back from those mistakes, and what you do is far more important than what you say. So yeah, I thought he dealt with it really well, and I thought he spoke about it very well. I think I wrote a piece on it earlier in the week. I think it was Monday after it all came out. The thing about the videos as well, there's some differing opinions on whether he uploaded them himself publicly to social media, or whether he uploaded them to a private group within, I think it was Snapchat maybe, unless I'm mistaken, and then that was somehow shared publicly by other people. A little bit like, I think was supposed to be the scenario with Delhi in the airport and way back. But either way, just no, it's just wrong. It's just wrong from the start. I'm very much one of these people, and it may be naive of me because I, like many people, would dream of being a Premier League football footballer, not football, that'd be weird, but being a Premier League footballer. So I look at people like Harry Kane, Ronaldo, Messi, these types that you could see what they've sacrificed, and they just put everything to make their body the best possible vessel to be a football player, the best it can be. They don't put any rubbish into it. They don't abuse it in any way, shape or form. Excuse me, as I cough, and that sounded rubbish, and as I moan and wince because of the pains in my body. And I just, whenever I see people doing anything that goes against that, I'm just like, oh, why are you wasting your opportunity? Why are you doing that? And look, I know some of the best at it. I think, didn't Zidane used to smoke? I can't remember. I could be absolutely casting aspersions on him, but I'm sure you'd see some players that did, and they'd still go out there and put in these incredible performances. But for me, I always feel to be at that top level, the ones that have kind of been seen as the best. And look, I know there's actually, when you think about it, there's loads of examples of some of the best. Obviously, Maradona being one of the most incredible players that's ever existed. And obviously, he had his issues. Let's put it that way. But I just felt with Bissouma, obviously different circumstances, different thing. But I felt with Bissouma, what was the most disappointing thing, probably for Postecoglou, was that a year ago, Postecoglou said to him very clearly, they had a very kind of important chat about how he felt that at his stage, he's 27 years old, is he 28 now, potentially, maybe, or he's 28 soon, perhaps, that he wanted him to become a real example for those young players. He came back, he was there early in pre-season last summer, and it was a lot of young players and Bissouma, and he said to him, look, this is your chance to be a real role model, a real kind of inspiration for these players to look up to want to be. And I was talking to Lucas Bergvall a couple of weeks back, and he was saying about how he really looks at Bissouma and the way he plays and things like that, and the way he is. And then he goes and does something stupid like this, and it just sets a really bad example for those young players. You look at someone like Mikey Moore just coming on the scene, he's only just turned 17. You want him to be looking at positive role models within that squad, the likes of Sonny. You don't want to be looking at someone like Bissouma and just thinking, oh, is that right? He seems to be doing it. And I think it's been dealt with really well by Postecoglou and the club, I guess, as well. I guess the sanctions would be club related, and Postecoglou, no doubt, would have probably not objected to it at all. And I think we'll be able to see, because you would imagine it's very unlikely Bissouma comes straight in against Everton into the starting lineup, unless he is shown incredible amounts of being just apologetic, incredible training sessions, whatever. This is going to go one of two ways, isn't it? This is either going to be the defining moment in Bissouma's season, the moment when he was kind of publicly, I guess, shown up for not being what you want him to be away from the pitch. He has this summer not played more than 45 minutes. I think I've probably said that in the last video. We don't know why that is. I almost asked it in the press conference, and I thought, do you know what? It seems a little bit kind of lesser in terms of the main thing that we need to know from this is more about the suspension and what's happened. But I do wonder whether he hasn't really been on it in the summer, because to only play 45 minutes in his position, that's a position where he would be needing 60, 75 minutes to get ready for what the Premier League is going to bring. So I did feel that was a little bit strange. So again, we don't know. So I can't just guess what the kind of background to that is, but it just seems strange that he was one of the few midfield players. Archie Gray got loads more minutes than him. Sarr did. Even Maddison, who didn't have the greatest of pre-season, got more minutes. I'm sure Maddison got one game where he got an hour at least. But yeah, it's just really, really poor from Bissouma, and it'll go one of two ways. Either he'll use it as a springboard to become the player we know he can be. He's got incredible ability, and this system works beautifully around him when he's on song. Or it goes the other way, and he's just annoyed Postecoglou so much, let him down so much, and if he doesn't show around the club that he is genuinely really sorry and that whole lifestyle element is not going to be there anymore, who knows? I talk about the foreign player numbers. He may end up being a casualty of that they may look to move him on and then replace him perhaps with someone else, or use the options they got. I'd imagine you'd have to replace. I did ask about the various. I asked about Archie Gray. I just asked, is he ready to take on this number 6 role straight away in a Premier League game? But Postecoglou said, yeah, Archie settled in really well. Again, great kid, but a really strong mindset. We've asked him to play different positions, but he's handled it really well. Part of the attraction of bringing someone like Archie to our club, and it is the case for a number of players we've brought in, is he can play in more than one position. So when it's required, we can use him in those areas. He's going really well. I'm really happy with him, and he has every chance to play on Monday. So that was, one possible avenue. And then George Sessions from PA asked him about Rodrigo Bentancur, and he said, yeah, Rodri last year was very much a bit like our season. It was a very much stop-start at times. At times he looked really good, got some rhythm, and then something would happen, whether it was an injury or another disruption. For him and the other guys, he went away with Uruguay and got game time there. In terms of his mindset, he's in a much better place of knowing that from an injury perspective, he is free of that. He is 12 months down the track after a significant injury, which always takes a bit of time, and it's been great to have him back part of the group. He came on in the second half last week, and I thought he looked really good. He's looked good in training, so hopefully that is where some of our improvement comes from. Guys who last year for one reason or another couldn't get to the levels we know they can, and if we can do that with guys like him and the ones who had a good seasons last year, if we can improve them as well, that improvement I'm looking for will be there. So yeah, personally, I would imagine he plays it a little bit safer in the first game. I would imagine that it would be probably Bentancur, Sarr and Maddison, I would probably say, in the midfield. And then Son and Decky either side of Solanke, and the back four as we know it is. And Vicario, if you need me to say it, back four, Doggy, Van der Ven, Romero, and of course Porro. Unless he decides Dragishin's that little bit fitter. You would think that having got 45 minutes each and having had a full 8-9 days or so. I think they had, it's not 8 or 9 days, I think they were given Sunday and Monday off, and then they came in on Tuesday. So it is 6 days of training. We'll see, but I would imagine he's more likely to go for the safer one. I would love to see Archie Gray making a start, but that'll happen. That'll happen regardless. Actually, there was a little bit of Wigan injury news that Tyrese Hall has just scored to give the under-21s the lead. That's good. That's what he needs to do, Tyrese. Where is it? I had the team news here and I've absolutely lost it. One moment, caller. For some reason I didn't write it in my notes. I had it on my laptop instead. But it was quite interesting because off the top of my head, Jamie Vardy's not available for Leicester, and neither is Patson Daka. And yeah, that was exactly it. Jamie Vardy out, Patson Daka out, Connor Cody out with a hamstring injury. Luke Thomas back in training. So there you go. Right. Okay, so that was it. I just thought, in case you needed to know. He was also asked about transfers, Postecoglou. He said, look, I think while it's open, there's always a kind of little bit of uncertainty because there are so many moving parts to it. It's not just I think he was about to say there's not just incomings, there's outgoings and incomings, as opposed to last year where there was a lot more moving parts. You're working within a sort of smaller spectrum of uncertainty. Certainly for me anyway, that I can plan for the season knowing that the bulk of the work's been done. I think he means more in the foundations laid. Whatever we get from here on in is not going to disrupt us too much, both incoming and outgoing. So from that perspective, I think I said after the weekend, I still expect there will be activity, but I think the uncertainty factor is a lot less than last year. He was also asked if Dominic Solanke coming in is a major piece that he's added, and if so, are there going to be more major pieces at that sort of level? £65 million player. He said, I said last week, I don't like speculating around this stuff, but Dom was important. Yeah, because even though it was settled, it was a tricky pre-season for us because we had the majority of our back four missing, and we didn't have a striker because Richie was injured as well. We only had young Will Lancashire. So when you don't have those key elements, you're trying to build a team. But I thought we managed that really well. But I was super pleased to obviously get Dom in, and that's coincided with Richie coming back. So from that perspective, it does give us a little bit more of a settled look at what the team's going to look like moving forward. But as I said, there are still, at least 2 press conferences before the window shuts, mate. That's how I count them, by the way. He mentioned also in another part of the press conference that Richarlison's absolutely feeling no effects from his injury right now. His calf injury, wasn't it? So that's good. In terms of transfers, I still think there'll be another couple. I do. I still feel like they need someone that can play as cover on the left, both probably central defensively and left back. I think in an ideal world, you find someone that can do both. I still feel they just need that extra bit of cover. I think Ben Davies can do that, but I think you need a little bit more of a more natural centre back. The thing with Ben Davies, I always worry a little bit from set pieces, and I think they need that a little bit more of another versatile player that can do that. Because, like I said, I think Ashley Phillips will head out. Alfie Dorrington's back in training, so that's great for him, but he needs some game time after that serious hamstring injury. And I would imagine another midfielder. I do think that. I do feel like we'll see another maybe experienced body in that midfield. That would be great. I mean, if it's another young talent, it's another young talent. But I personally would like to see just someone that's got a little bit kind of more seasons under their belt, a little bit more nous, and they're going to need that as the season goes on. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Other little bit of news, I'm also keeping an eye on it because Spurs were supposed to announce their squad numbers today. I think they said it in a story earlier. Let me just double check in case that's come out. We certainly know about... nothing yet as of doing this. But we know that Dominic Solanke is going to be number 19. That was announced today. I do wonder whether he would have liked to have held out maybe. I wonder that for Lo Celso's number 18 because he was a big Jermaine Defoe fan when he was younger. So I wondered about that. And of course, 1 and 8 adds up to 9. Great maths there from myself. But 19, sometimes strikers just like to have the 9 on their back, whether it's a 1 and a 9. And also, again, 1 and 9 makes 10, another striker number that you can have. Previously held, of course, by Cesc and Moussa Dembele. So hopefully that does very well for him, that shirt number. And we see lots of goals from him, which is what I'm expecting. Postecoglou was asked about Solanke and he said, obviously you don't know what the player you'd really want to come in is going to be like until you get them up close and personal in training. How has he been? And he said, thankfully, it is what we expected. He's a top pro, a good guy. He's sort of settled into the dressing room really well. Footballing-wise, you can see he has the attributes that kind of fit into what we want to do really well. There's still an adjustment period there as we play a little bit differently and train differently, and we have seen that with every new signing that comes in. So far, though, he has fitted in really well with the group and training. We still have a couple of sessions to go, but so far, so good. And he was asked again, will he be good to go on Monday? And he said, yeah, he should be. So, that would be great, I think. Get him straight in there. Get him playing. There's a photo now of Wilson is our new number 28. There you go. Photo of him holding up his number 28 shirt. There you go. So, the other thing I was asked about was Harry Winks. And Harry Winks obviously left in the summer, last summer when Postecoglou first came in. And he was asked about that, kind of letting him go that summer. And he said, yeah, to be fair to Harry, that decision was kind of made before I got here. It is part of the process of change, as I said last week. It's not about the quality of a footballer because he doesn't fit. There is no point in me coming in and tinkering around the edges. We need to make significant changes. That's what the club wanted, and that's what I've done. The squad has changed fairly dramatically from 12, 13 months ago, but that's the reason I've come in. At the same time, it doesn't diminish Harry's career. He's had a fantastic season. He's back in the Premier League this year. He's an outstanding footballer. These decisions are often not a reflection of a player's ability. It is just the timing of things and things moving on. So, I thought that was, again, well said. And, yeah, he has done absolutely fine for himself. And he'll be desperate to kind of prove something, won't he? It's like the Winks-Maddison derby on Monday night. But yeah, I mean, you think about the overhaul. That has maybe been Postecoglou's biggest achievement in a way. That this squad, when you look at the makeup of the squad from just over 14 months ago, I'd say, when he first came in, it's almost near unrecognisable in so many aspects. It has to be the biggest overhaul of a squad that Spurs have had, hasn't it? It must be since Poch came in. I mean, there are a fair few changes under Conte and Mourinho, but this has got to be up there. Someone far more intelligent than I, or just someone that can count, should work it all out, and we'll know. But yes, Wilson Odobert, the latest arrival to it all. Right, let's have a look for some questions before we kind of finish this off. What else we got? Oh, what the answer to that was Decky's goal, the fastest goal ever scored at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I'm presuming we were talking about the Bayern one, about 24 seconds. I think it must be, wasn't it? Unless I'm forgetting a really obvious one, I would think it would be. Luis Rayardo 8817 says, how would you feel if Spurs would do a swap deal plus cash for Kyle Walker-Peters with Jed Spence? That would solve the club trained players aspect. It would, but from everything I understand, Jed's sticking around. Jed's going to be part of the squad. Kind of had that further confirmed this week. Obviously, Postecoglou pretty much kind of suggested that would be the case if Jed took the opportunity to be on the tour. And from what I understand, that he's just continued in that vein. He's really impressing him. There's some more stuff from Postecoglou on Jed Spence coming out tomorrow night from the embargoed section of the press conference. If you're not aware of what the embargoed section of the press conference is, it's split up into little bits so the national newspapers can have stuff going out in their papers and being fresh for different days. It's a bit of an archaic, old school thing in that the thinking is we can bury the story online at 10:30 at night and then it will be fresh for the papers the next day. I think it's something we'll see phased out over time because it's just the way print is. Print is kind of obviously in decline and online stuff will become the norm. As someone that's worked for 21 years now in journalism and worked for the bulk of that in print, I kind of feel quite well placed to say that. That's not to say I don't still love print and, you know, it's still the kind of the cool old school way of doing it. But even myself, I think the bulk of my news now is definitely done online. So I do feel like the news industry is going to eventually be probably 100% digital eventually. Kind of boring stuff maybe for someone, but the key thing for the media is to be able to justify the kind of getting the advertising and the amount of money that you need to get in, because advertising in newspapers brings in a lot of money. Advertising online is differing, and that's the key kind of thing. I don't know how I got that from embargo. Sorry, it was a long-winded thing, but yeah, that's what I think we have to sort out in the future, and is getting those who want to advertise in papers across to online and doing it in a proper good way. But okay, so hopefully that explains it. Kyle Walker-Peters would have made sense in terms of the club trained aspect, but I think now Jed has shown what he can do. I think it looks like he's going to get the opportunity to kind of show for this season that he can make an impact at Spurs, which is great. And he can also play on the left, so he will be another option there if needed. But like I say, I would probably want someone who's more comfortable playing that role as well. Let's have a look. This was before, I think. Steve or Stevin Diesel. That's a kind of an actor's name in the middle there. Do you not see Biss as a potential top six? I'm sure he dominated thereabouts. Top number 6. I'm sure he dominated thereabouts at the start of last season. He certainly seemed to be receiving the ball a lot from defence off and deepest. It's down to Bissouma. It's down to him. He's got the potential to be an absolutely world-class number 6, but there's so much more to it than just turning up on a day and playing football. There's a lot more. What else we got? That's a movie question. Probably leave that to the movie channel. But thank you for it. If you haven't seen my movie channel, Gold Goes to the Movies. Did a new one the other day. I'm still continuing to do those. I had to take a little break while I was away on the tour because there was loads to do of work-wise on that, but it is back, and I do spoiler-free movie reviews. Just another little thing that I enjoy. So yeah, head across and, go and watch that if that's your thing, if you like a good movie. What else we got here? People asking me to have more days off, although I didn't have a day off today, and I signed someone. I was working. I was in the middle of a team meeting, and then suddenly the news dropped. I was like, oh my goodness, I had to kind of come out of that and come away. In a way, it's quite... We're so used to kind of knowing bits and pieces about transfers. It was quite fun to suddenly be like, bang, there's a transfer. It's weird. Obviously, we want to, if we could, in an ideal world, we would want to know about every cough and spit of every transfer before it happens, because that's our job. But also, like I said earlier, I don't think it's the worst thing sometimes when these things do go through like that from the larger kind of bigger picture. Prashant Dumbre 2009 says Dele Alli counts as club trained? I think he would, yes. I think for Dele though, it's just a case now of him. I've said this before, and it's always going to be my answer on Dele Alli. He needs to be out of the spotlight and just building himself back to where he can be. I really hope he gets there. But I don't think throwing him into the goldfish bowl of Tottenham would be any good for him whatsoever. What the Blazes, I like that username, asked, does Carter Vickers qualify as club trained for homegrown? If so, do you think the club would go back in for him? He's one that I've wondered about, I must admit. Because, yes, I think he would be club trained because he came through the academy and Andrews had worked with him before at Celtic. But you never know. You couldn't rule it out, but I just wonder, like I said earlier, if when they look for a centre-back, they look for someone that can also play as a left-back to cover two potential roles. But he's done very well at Celtic. And I do think that if anyone knows him well, it would be Postecoglou. So if he did decide to go for him, he'd be able to play pretty well for him. Someone asking, what breed is Indy, my dog? He is a cockapoo. Adam Hines 9866. Do you ever watch any of the Spurs content on YouTube? Many YouTubers see the club from different, I think that's supposed to be angels. It says angles. Would love to know your favourites. I've answered this one before, to be fair. I don't. I very much, I think because my life is consumed by Spurs. I write about them every day. I do these videos about them. I do the podcast with Guesty, Golden Guest Talk Tottenham. We do that as well. In my spare moments, I promise you, I try and get as far away as I possibly can from I wouldn't say football because I'll still watch football, but anything kind of that kind of Spurs related way. I just try to, that's why I love movies and other stuff. I try to get away from it a bit, otherwise I'd just be absolutely burnt out. There's only so much Tottenham Hotspur you can consume, and and I think a lot of the YouTube channels are fan YouTube channels, and I can, if I want to get a sense, I guess, of how fans feel, I can look on social media and things like that. But look, there seems to be a lot of them, and they all, I'm sure, do very well. And in terms of different angles, seeing it, of course, that's the beauty of football. Everyone sees things from different viewpoints. Doesn't mean one's right, doesn't mean one's wrong. And I think the key thing, as always, I always try and say, is just to try and remain as objective as you can, really, and look at everything from every possible viewpoint, and don't get stuck down a singular narrative. That's always been my way. So, no. In answer, no, I don't. But I'm sure there's a lot out there. In terms of YouTube, mostly my YouTube content, if anyone would look at my search history, it's just movie stuff, movie trailers, interviews with movie stars, or a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm stuff. I like watching Larry David interviews over the years as well. So yeah, that's it. Boring answer, I'm afraid, sorry. But that's not to the detriment of anyone else that does YouTube videos. It's just I just don't have the time, probably is the best way to put it, and I do try and escape a little bit. Even like podcasts, I don't listen to any actually football podcasts. I don't, thinking about it. When I'm in my car, or going out on the runs I now have to do for the marathon training, I will listen to the Curb Your Enthusiasm one with Jeff and Susie. I'm enjoying that. I listen to Smartless. I listen to Conan O'Brien sometimes. NFL stuff as well. I do. I just try and transport myself to a different world, because as you can imagine in my job, my phone is constantly going mad. It's even on my days off and things like that. There's often people, even just during this video, I've had various messages from people, which is why I suddenly look, because I've got my WhatsApps on my laptop screen, because I'm using my phone to film this. And yeah, if I don't switch off at some point, I probably would go absolutely mad. Leon Patmore asks, any idea when we find out who we play in Europe? I think, is it the 29th this month? I think. It's going to be a whole different thing. There's very much a set pot. I can't remember who the teams are now, but we know certain teams that are going to form a couple of the... I think we know who will form 2 of the 4 teams that Spurs will have in their group, because isn't it a 5-team group? I can't remember now. I did look it all up the other day. I feel like maybe Lazio and Roma, potentially 2 of them. But Hey, we've got Jose back in the mix now after they went out in the Champions League. That would just be classic Spurs, wouldn't it? To have a reunion with Jose. I'm sure he would enjoy that as well. What else we got? Yeah, this is an interesting one as well. And actually, I forgot to mention that about Bentancur. We still don't know whether there's going to be any ban for Bentancur in terms of the comments about Sonny, or also kind of what happened at the Copa America. I know that would be. I think that would be an international one. That would be more than anything. But we still wait to see. I need to dig into that. Actually, I haven't asked around, spoken to the FA about that in a little while. But this question is Dom NG88 asks, did Sonny get asked about the whole Bentancur fiasco during the Korean tour? I just imagine the Korean media would have surely asked about it. Surprisingly, no. I'd asked about it before. Was it up in Hearts? Wasn't it? I asked about it, and my kind of very much my position that I wanted to take in when we were in Korea was, I feel like this is for the Korean media to ask. This is not my place to come to their country and ask about a subject that is more personal, is very much personal to them. But surprisingly, it wasn't asked at all. So, I didn't want to kind of go in there and stir it up and make it awkward within their country. I kind of didn't feel like that was my place, especially having already asked about it. So, yeah, I was surprised to a degree. But maybe it just means that maybe it's maybe they moved on, and maybe it was they didn't want to feel like they were being disrespectful. I don't think that would be the case, because they certainly asked some quite straightforward questions. I don't know the answer why it wasn't asked, but that's the reason why I didn't ask again about it. What else we got? Someone said about Nodi Madueke coming back as club trained. I don't believe he is club trained. I think he left before he would have been eligible. I think he left at 16, didn't he? I think. Someone else asking about Bentancur's the CONMEBOL investigation. We haven't heard that yet. Doesn't Sarr count as club trained? Unfortunately not. He does not. What else we got here? Oh, top 6, bottom 3 predictions. I actually did that on the podcast. I'll leave that on the podcast. I did have Spurs. I think I said this earlier. I did have them coming in at 3rd. Elsewhere, the rest, yeah, you can listen to it on Golden Guest Talk Tottenham, because I'm terrible with predictions anyway. There's no point me saying them. Pretty much whatever I predict when it comes to final league placings is usually not what happens. I'm quite good at predicting other stuff that'll happen, but league places, I'm dreadful. We have to do it for work every year, and every year I look back at them and I'm like, ugh. So it's like, that's why when people ask me for a score prediction, I pretty much always go, no, not doing that because it won't come true. Especially if I say Spurs will win. So no, I don't do that. Right, there you go. I think that was probably the best place to wrap it up right now, because I didn't want this to be as an absolute hour and 30 bumper one. It was only going to be a slightly shorter one, hour and 8 minutes we're about to go over. But yeah, another signing. Another teenage signing. Let me know your comments on it all. I'm fascinated to know the differing views on it and how you see it, and what they still need. Like I say, for me, still believe a centre-back who could play at left-back would be perfect to cover those 2 roles, and a midfielder would be great. I think just another body in there as the games come thick and fast, because there's a lot of games this season. A lot. We talk about Europa League. There's 8 alone just in the group stages of that to come. That's extra ones there that are a bit further than the Carabao Cup. Hey, they advanced further than they did last season purely because European football means they don't go in at the second round again. But yeah, lots of football to be played again. Lots of players. The Postecoglou way will bring injuries, especially for the new players. Those hamstrings are not going to be used to it. I'd imagine we'll see some hamstring injuries in the first couple of months as they get used to it. But also the sports science staff will have adjusted to it. But yeah. Plenty to come this season, and I'm hopeful. I am. I do think people are kind of writing Spurs off without maybe realising what he's doing there behind the scenes as well. And it's interesting. If you look at it, there's quite a few people that are saying the Solanke deal could be one of the biggest and best of the summer, which is quite interesting. I saw Ian Wright, even just before I came on this. Ian Wright, obviously, we know where his allegiances lie, but he said Solanke, that could end up being the signing of the summer, because I think of just how well he fits this system, and he's a goals. He is going to score goals. I've seen, I've said it, 72 goals over the last 4 seasons. Seen people trying to do down the fact that one of those seasons was like a load of goals in the Championship, but he's got to score against whoever's in front of you, and I think he's starting to hit his peak now as a striker. Ivan Toney, the big bulk of his goals in the last 4 years came in the Championship as well. But, it's about what he's going to do in this Tottenham Hotspur team, Dominic Solanke, and I'm very excited to see what he does. So, right, time to head off. Who knows? The next time I do one of these, we might be talking about another transfer. That would be lovely. Probably like to try to do one on either Tuesday night or Wednesday after the Leicester game. We could talk about the first game. Hopefully Spurs start in a positive way. That would be great. And then obviously it'll be Everton at home straight after that, and then the games just continue. Well, I say they come thick and fast. They're a little bit more spaced out to begin with, and then towards the end of going into September, it starts to go bang, doesn't it? It really kind of hits. And I'll be trying to do 2 videos a week all the time to keep up with it, but we'll have to see, especially with the European trips, whether it allows me to get back in time to do it. But there you go. Right, time to head off now. I need some dinner as well. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.